syllabus. It gave the schedule of we were supposed to do chapters, what was it? 1 and 2 on Monday and 2 and 3 today.
Yes.
So why am I still on page 13? Page 12 in chapter 1. I don't know. I just am. Did all of you bring your little handout that I gave you last time back with you? So how are we going to hurry through this stuff on these overview of major developmental theories? Does anyone need one? Everyone have one in front of them? Do you have one of these? I know it's in your book, but I'm not sure you'll all keep your books. You know, sometimes people. Everybody have one in front of them? Got one? Got one? Got one? Okay, you got one? Got one? All right. So, but hopefully, someplace in your life, you might say, you know, it would be nice to save some of this information out of this class for future reference. So these handouts are like if you have a little file folder that you put things in, then you could stick these things in that file folder. But you go, no, that's old school. I don't do file folders anymore. And that's why I think what I have to do is all these handouts that I'm giving you, I need to put them up on Canvas so you can, under files, so you can download them to a flash drive. And then I was thinking last night, wow, you people have it made. You just buy a flash drive and carry it with you through college, and then everything in every class that's useful, you just download it to your flash drive, and you've got all that stuff there. You don't need a file cabinet, you don't need file folders, you've just got it all stored away. Just make sure you label it in such a way that you can find it. But I'm just telling you that down the road someday you'll want to look this chart over again. It's a good little chart. So I want to talk about it a little bit before we move on, but I know I have a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to cover it rather quickly. So if you got your chart there, didn't we already talk about psychoanalytic theories? We talked about that. The id, your primitive instincts, sometimes called your desires. And by the way, there are both good and evil desires. The good desire is to please God. The evil desire is to please yourself. The good desire is to please your parents. The evil desire is to have your own way. You don't care how your parents feel about it. Do any of you remember knowing what your parents wanted you to do and deciding not to do it because you wanted to do what you wanted to do so bad, and then after you did what you wanted to do that was so bad that you wanted to do so bad, you felt so bad that you wished you wouldn't have done it? Did you learn a lesson from that? And see, psychoanalysts say, you know, all that stuff's going on underneath. It's going on in your unconscious mind where you can't figure it out. That's why you need to come and see me on a regular basis and pay me a good chunk of change so I can help you sort through that. All you have to do is read some of this stuff, study some of these theories, and say, you know, I can take from that theory what's useful and use it in my own life and use it in the lives of other people. And then, of course, your ego, that's your ability to reason, to rationalize. You can say, you know, not a good idea. But you can rationalize yourself out of doing the good thing and rationalize yourself into doing the bad thing. And then, and I'm glad they use that word conscience in there, and then your conscience kicks in. But it's not just your conscience, it's also the moral ideals that you either just embrace on your own or that somebody taught you. I mean, I didn't grow up going to church. I just grew up hearing about the man upstairs. That's how my dad referred to him. Deserves our respect. He makes our crops grow, makes the sun come up every day, and we just need to respect him. And I lived in a world where a lot of people didn't respect him. Erickson, did you take the back of this page I gave you and circle all the good things? Do you have that circled on the back where Erickson talks about his focus is on developing a healthy identity? So you go down and say you want to learn to trust people, you want to learn to be autonomous, take initiative. We ran through all of those the other day. So but that's why I'm giving you this, so you can keep it handy. Behavioral and social learning theories, back over on the overview page again. They focus on conditions and environments and how they relate to observable behaviors. I stepped outside this morning to come to school, and when you stepped outside, how did it feel out there? Warm, cold,
Chilly.
Amazing.
nice, uncomfortable,
A little bit chilly.
a little chilly, a little cold. So what did I do? My wife's outside walking, getting her exercise, trying to keep her. She always goes walking. She's diabetic, so she always goes walking before she checks her blood sugar. Does that help bring it down? Is that why she does that? Because she goes out early in the morning and walks up and down the driveway. She's out there walking, and I come out to go to school, and she goes, "Oh, it's cold out here. Where's your coat?" I said, "It's in the car." "Why is my coat in the car?" "I wore it to class on Monday." Was it cold Monday morning?" "Yes, I wore it to class on Monday." Then I walked out of class, and it was hot. I said, "I'm not wearing this thing home." Took it off and threw it in the back of the car, and then just left it there. So, see, what we're talking about is you basically are looking at conditions that relate to observable behavior. It's cold, I put on a coat. It's warm, I take it off. Why? Why do I do that? See, that would be back to this psychoanalytic stuff. Because I want to feel comfortable. So it's just like, that's all behavioral theories are. They're just looking at behaviors and talking about what's going on. Why do people do the things they do? Why do some of you come to class early? And why do some of you come at the last minute? And I'm not being judgmental about it. I'm just saying, there's the behavior. And now see, I could sit and observe it and theorize about it, but it's probably more important for each of us just to think about, why do we do the things we do? Why am I wearing this pair of pants and this shirt today? Oh, because they were in the appointed place in my closet. You go, what? You have a place for everything and everything in its place? Oh, someone ought to write a song about that. And that should be in every verse of the song. And just sing it over and over and talk about how that makes people so happy. No, that makes you happy. That makes other people nervous. Somebody asks if they can borrow something of mine, and I say, sure. And then the next time I see them, I say, did you bring back what you borrowed? Are you finished with it? They go, yes, Poppy, I am. So I'm going, so where did you put it? Now, when I ask that, what am I expecting? You put it back where you got it, so I'll know where it is the next time I need it. Why do I live in a world full of people who don't embrace that beautiful axiom? Here's my wife's explanation, because God is trying to teach you patience, Tom. He's trying to teach you that everybody doesn't see the world the way you do, and you need to make some accommodations and adjustments for the rest of us. Okay. And I could talk about that, but I won't. We'll just move on and talk about, under these behavioral therapies, operant conditioning, where behavior is influenced by the consequences of our actions. Why do I want to get every place early? Why do I leave? I mean, it's 15 after 7, and I better be in the car and on my way to school. Why? So I can be here at 7:30. If I leave at 7:20, I get a knot in my stomach. Oh, that's why I leave at 7:15, because when I leave at 7:15, I'm a happy camper when I get here. If I leave later, I get all tensed up and uptight. They say, well, I don't. Well, then you don't need to do that. But you see what happens is you talk about your behavior and the consequences of actions and how it affects what you do. And this is interesting at our house. I like to leave so early that it makes my wife nervous that we're going to get someplace an hour before we need to be there, especially when I'm going to a grandson's baseball game, so I can get the perfect seat behind the screen where I can videotape the ball game. There's a special place that gives you the best video on a baseball field. And I'm going to tell you where it is, because then you'd go to my ball game and take my spot, and then I wouldn't get it, and I'd be all uptight for the whole game because I had to sit someplace else. See, you just think about this. This is how it affects me. This is what's going on. So sometimes I'll get to a game an hour before the game starts. And she just sits in the car and reads a book, works a puzzle, while I go sit in my chair and watch the other team play, or just watch the sun come up, or just watch people just sit there, or work a puzzle. I keep Sudokus, no, they're called Samukos, in my little satchel that I carry with my camera, so I can write that stuff down. And it's just like, why do you do that? So I won't get uptight if I get impatient and tired of waiting. I carry them everywhere because they give me something to do. I take them to the dentist, I take them to the doctor's office, I take them everywhere, just so I can just take a pencil and a paper, and then if they have me wait 15 or 20 or 30 minutes or an hour, it doesn't matter. I've got puzzles to work on, so I'm doing something to keep my mind sharp. Okay, social learning theory. That's simply learning by observing and watching other people. What have you learned to do by observing others? Does anybody in this room tie your shoe backwards? You don't know. I didn't know it either till someone watched me tie my shoe one time and said, "What are you doing, Tom?" I said, "Tying my shoes." They said, "You tie them backwards." But here's why. No one taught me how to tie my shoes. I mean, my mother didn't come around me and say, "Here's how you tie your shoes." I watched other people tie their shoes and then looked at what they were doing and did what they were doing. Now, what happens if you do that? You're doing it backwards. But it works for me. And I've tried to change and do it the right way. See, there's that old moral stuff coming in. And I can't do it. I just keep doing it backwards. Knowing that if I tie my shoes in front of people, they're going to laugh. You say, "I don't know if I do it backwards or not." Well, tie your shoe in front of a crowd of people someday and see if they laugh. They say, "No, you do it right." Well, then that means someone taught you how to do it, whereas you didn't watch somebody and learn to do it on your own. Did any of you learn to pour milk on your own? Reach in the refrigerator, get a gallon of milk, and pour yourself a glass of milk. Who did that on their own? Only once? Because what happened? Oh, no. I mean, little kids are going to spill milk. So when you spill it, somebody goes bonkers on you. And it's like, well, you know, I'm going to die because I spilled some milk on the counter. Does anyone know why parents go bonkers about that? Hey, okay, you spill milk on a counter and someone comes by with a wet cloth and wipes it up, but if they don't get all the milk residue off of there, what happens 6 hours later?
Smells sour.
The room smells sour. That's what bothers adults. They don't like the smell of spoiled milk. You say, well, why didn't it bother little kids? It's a whole bunch of smells that don't bother little kids that bother adults. You know, get used to it. And as an adult, you say, I need to get used to some of that stuff. Okay, cognitive theories. That's simply a focus on how children learn to think. We're trying to figure out how these little chippers think and what's going on in their heads. And you know what I've discovered? The best way to discover how little kids are thinking is just to ask them. You see the wrinkled forehead, you can see something's going on. I say, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And so they just tell me. And I ask questions of little kids a lot just to know what's going on in their heads. I ask questions of adults. got in trouble on Sunday afternoon when I took my wife to her favorite place to go shopping after church, the Red Rack Thrift Store out in Blue Springs. We walked in the door. I look up the sign, I go, aha, yellow tags are 50 cents. And so I go around looking for stuff with yellow tags that I can buy for 50 cents. And my wife's walking around shopping. I put some stuff in the cart, and she goes, white tags are 50 cents. I said, no, they're not. She goes, yes, they are, Tom. It's on the sign at the front of the store. And I said, I'll go check. I walked clear up to the front of the store, and I checked. White tags are 50% off. I mean, yellow tags are 50%. No, white tags are 50% off, and yellow tags are 50 cents. Now, if something costs $5, that's the difference between $2.50 and 50 cents. I went back and I told her what the sign said. She said, no, it doesn't. I said, come with me, please. And we walked back to the front of the store again, and I pointed at the sign, and I said, what's it say? And she says, and here's what she reads, because the sign said 50 cents for white, then it said, 50 cents for yellow, then it said green or something was 25% and then off, and then white was 50% off. And she goes, 50, 25, and 50. And I'm going, Nina, the first 50 has cents written after it. The second one has a percent sign, and so does the third one. Oh, she said. Now that should have ended it, right? But I just made 2 trips to the front of the store to get this thing squared away. And I was right to begin with, okay? That always adds to the ego, doesn't it? You know where this is going, don't you? I just couldn't resist. My wife reads books all the time. And I, to my shame and embarrassment, said, do you read books like you read signs at the Red Rack Thrift Store? And apparently to a book reader, that is not a kind statement. And from the looks of some of you in here, I should have known better than that. Now, did I suffer some consequences for that behavior? Did I? Yes, I did. Guys, here's my motto. When you think it and you're not sure about whether or not it'll get you in trouble if you say it, just swallow it. Just swallow it. Don't put it out there, because you'll pay for it. There are consequences to that behavior. Just keep your mouth shut. Too bad, Tommy. You're just a bad boy. But that's what I'm saying. You learn from what's going on in your head. How are you thinking? And you're trying to say, I'm trying to analyze why I think that way and why I do what I do and what can I do to become a better thinker. You can take your Bible and look up all the words that talk about thinking and make yourself think biblically. Think like Christ wants us to think. Piaget, see that guy under cognitive development? Jean Piaget? That's Oklahomanese for Jean Piaget. He's a Frenchman. Jean Piaget. Isn't that beautiful? I took French one time at a university just for fun and learned to pronounce Jean Piaget's name right. Jean Piaget. Here's what he says. Children construct their own understanding. Anyone know what a bobcat is? B-O-B-C-A-T? Okay. My grandson has, his other grandfather has one. And he said, Poppy, the other day I was helping my grandpa work down on his farm, and he let me drive his bobcat, B-O-B-C-A-P. And I said, it's a bobcat, buddy. He said, no, it isn't. It's a bobcat. I thought, I'm not going to argue with him. We're talking about the same thing. He spells it with a P. I mean, he's just a little kid anyway. He doesn't know spelling. I spell it with a T. If we know we're talking about the same thing, let it go. I let it go. And then about a year later, he's talking about his grandpa's bobcat. And I said, Bobcat? Are you talking about a bobcat? He said, it's not a bobcat, Poppy. It's a bobcat. Now he's correcting me. I'm trying to accommodate him, being a nice guy. Now I get in trouble for it. But see, I'm just trying to learn how these little kids, they develop this thinking about stuff. Have you ever encountered a little kid who had such strong thoughts about something, and they felt so strongly about their thoughts that they're not giving it up for anything? And you might as well just smile and walk away, because you can't take some screws, open their head, and fix it. You have to give it some time, and by the way, use some of this psychology stuff to get inside their heads and fix things. Help them reconstruct the way they think about stuff. If a little child has a pet, and I say, did any of you have pets when you were smaller? Did any of you have 4-footed pets? Did the 4-footed pets have tails? Yes? Yes? A whole bunch of you. So what picture do you have? Is your picture called a cat or a dog?
Cat.
What?
Cat.
A cat?
Cat.
Cat? Dog? She's right. You girls are wrong. Now, why did I say she's right and you're wrong? Because what kind of pet did I have as a child?
A dog.
Yeah. So you cat people are all messed up. Why would you have a cat for a pet anyway? See, you understand? You see how even when we get to be adults, we walk around with all this stuff in our heads and say, where's that come from? It comes from a lot of what happened when I developed this thinking as a young person. And a little kid who has a cat for a pet sees a dog on the sidewalk, and what do they call him?
Cat.
A cat. And you would see a cat on the sidewalk and call it a dog when you were little. Now, often we don't remember that because those are embarrassing thoughts for some people. To me, it's intriguing to study the mind, see how it works. But understand, when you're working with little children, there's a lot of that stuff kind of going on. I used to tell my daughters when they were real little and we went to church that they needed to sit in church and listen to the pastor when he preaches and take notes on his sermons. And they said, Dad, I don't know how to write words. I said, who said you have to write words? Just draw pictures of what he's saying. And one of them said one time, I don't understand what he's saying. Then draw pictures of him. Draw pictures of what it looks like up on the platform when you're looking up there. Draw pictures of the podium, pictures of his microphone, pictures of the chairs. What am I trying to get these little kids to do?
Observe.
To sit in church quietly doing something, and then after church I'd say, so show me your notes from church, kids. I want to see these. And it became an important thing because other people are sitting around trying to get their kids to be quiet and sit still and do something. So what do? They bring a rattle for them to play with. Now, somebody needs to have a talking to about that. And if you're going to bring a toy, don't bring something with squeaky wheels or something out of wood that they can bang on the pew. What are people thinking? And the other thing Piaget said, children develop mental schemas to represent their understanding. Like you have a schema for a dog and a cat. Okay, your schema for a dog, what color is it? Doesn't have a color. It's just kind of an outline diagram there. Say, my schema doesn't have a color. Your schema for a car. Red.
I don't know why.
I don't know why. See, that's it. I don't know why. My schema for a cat doesn't have a color. My schema for a car is red. You understand? It's like you've got your head full of all these little schematics, they're called. Little pictures that you try to fit things into. And look what it says here about Piaget. This is what's good about what he has to say about how he developed. They use these these schematics to represent their understanding. And then when they see something new, they assimilate the new information and try to fit it into their existing set of schematics. And if it doesn't fit, that's called disequilibrium. I don't think they talk about that on this page, but when you read it in your book, you'll see it. Then that disequilibrium throws them off, and then they have to develop a new schema for this new object so that they can regain their equilibrium. That's called accommodating our schemas to either enlarge the existing ones to include new things in it, or to develop a new schema for something that's separate. If I say, I'm thinking of an animal with 2 legs. Do you have a schema for an animal with 2 legs? I'm thinking of a big animal with 2 legs. Got a schema for a big animal with 2 legs?
Ostrich.
An ostrich?
Bigfoot.
What? Say it again.
I said Bigfoot.
Bigfoot? He's watching too many movies, isn't he? What else? I mean, that's okay, but that's the schema. Anybody else have a schema for a big animal with 2 legs? Okay, let's take a little animal with 2 legs.
Robin.
A robin?
Chicken.
A chicken? Rest of them don't have schemas. These people, your mind is just an empty suitcase waiting for you to fill it up with schematics. Do you have one for a small animal with 2 legs? What?
A baby.
I didn't hear you.
A baby.
A baby.
A baby?
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Duckling.
What?
Duckling.
Ducklings? You've got too many schematas in there. Some of you guys, what comes to mind? You say nothing. You people who grew up on a farm have all these schematics in your head, and us city folks need something else. Okay, it has 4 wheels. I'm thinking of something with 4 wheels. Now what's the schematic in your head?
Cat.
What?
Car.
A car?
Definitely a 4-wheeler.
A 4-wheeler. All right. What else?
A baby.
What? What?
A baby.
A baby? All right. A baby buggy with a baby in it. 2 wheels. I'm thinking of a schematic in my head with 2 wheels. How many have a schematic for a bicycle? Oh, I finally found something that we all have up there. What color is your bicycle?
Pink.
Pink?
Red again.
Red again? And she still doesn't know why. The rest of you, what color is your bicycle?
Gray.
Blue? Gray?
Purple.
Purple? You go, I don't want to say, it's embarrassing because someone's going to laugh at me. Well, get used to it. In this class, we're going to laugh at each other all over the place. That's just what it is. And okay, maybe I should tell you why we laugh. This might help. Here's why we laugh, okay? I have a schema in my head for 4 wheels. If your schema says baby, I go, that doesn't even come close to my schema, and it throws me off balance. And so watch what I do. So I go, ha, 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 to regain my mental equilibrium. See, that's why we laugh. And now that I've got my mental equilibrium, I can think about, why would he see baby? Oh, because it's in a buggy with 4 wheels. See, now it makes sense to me, so it's not funny anymore. And I'm not laughing at him. It's like I'm laughing because I was thrown off balance by what was said. By the way, that's how comedians work. They throw you off balance. When I studied this stuff years ago, I decided to try something. if I can avoid being thrown off balance by the comedian when he gives the punchline, I won't laugh. That was my theory. So what do? While he's telling a joke, you think of all the possible ridiculous punchlines that he could come up with. Then when he mentions one, even if it wasn't one of the ones on your list, you thought, I would have come to it eventually. That makes sense for a good punchline. You just look at him and don't laugh. Then he thinks, wasn't that funny? I'm going, yeah, that was funny. Well, then why didn't you laugh? Because you didn't throw me off balance. I was a step ahead of you in thinking about what you were going to say to make me laugh.
What about when you already know what they're going to say and it still makes you laugh?
Because then you just enjoy it and you say, I heard this one once and it was funny, so I'm going to let it entertain me again. We just say, I like being entertained. I just like to laugh at stuff. Okay, enough of that. Vygotsky emphasized the roles of culture and social interaction in cognitive development. You know why you think the way you think? Vygotsky would say, because you grew up in the United States of America. You know why I think the way I think? Because I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma. You know why you think the way you think? Because you grew up in a city in Minnesota. Isn't that what people say who are born there? Minnesota? And people who grew up in Illinois. Anyone grew up in Illinois?
Yes, but not Illinois.
What?
It's not Illinois, but I did grow up in Illinois.
There's an S on it. You grew up in Illinois? So how do you, okay, she's got it right, doesn't she? I've got it wrong. I loved it when I worked there in Illinois for 5 years. I did this to people all the time, and they get all hyper about it. I'd say Illinois, and they go, you don't say the S. I said, okay. So there's a town in Illinois that's called Desplains. Have you heard of it? What's it called?
Isn't it Desplains?
Desplains?
Is that what it is?
That's the way it would be said. Is that the way you people in Illinois say Desplains? What? They don't. They don't. They say Des Plains. I'm going, you people don't follow the rules. You get on me about it, they don't follow the rules. They break their own rules down there just so they can mess with me. And then when I drove to the countryside in Illinois, and I was working up there for about 5 years, it was so funny. The ground is so fertile. It's like you just plant something, go out tomorrow, and it's popped up and growing. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, I found out when I did some genealogical research that my ancestors left Illinois and went to Kansas because it was like the Garden of Eden. I've never seen the Garden of Eden in Kansas. Then they went from there to Oklahoma because that was the Garden of Eden. That is not the Garden of Eden. You don't wear white tennis shoes in Oklahoma and keep them white very long, do you? They turn what? Red real fast. Anyone know why?
The dirt, clay in this.
The dirt's red. I'm going, dirt's not red. Cars are red. Bicycles are red. Your shirt's red. Dirt's not red. But I grew up on a farm with red dirt and didn't even know it was red. Because dirt is brown or black. I had to move to Illinois to see black dirt, to go back to Oklahoma and say, whoa, this state's full of red dirt. But when I was living in it, I didn't even recognize it for what it was. And then to think that my ancestors moved there because it was like the Garden of Eden. There is no Garden of Eden. It's gone. Adam and Eve messed up big time and spoiled it for the rest of us. Well, if they wouldn't have spoiled it, you and I would have, so give them a break. Okay, what else? Children adopt the psychological tools created and encouraged by their culture. So the way we think has been influenced greatly by the culture we grow up in. I wanted my daughters, when they were younger, to learn something about where I grew up. So I'd go home in the summertime, since I was a teacher, and help my dad with his farm work. And sometimes I'd be out in the field driving a tractor, pulling a piece of machinery that stirred up a lot of dust, and the dust would just cover me. Anyone know what I'm talking about? The dust would just cover me. I would come in the house afterwards, and Dinah would say, your dinner's cold, Tom. I said, well, I had to finish doing that field before I came in. Put it over here and I'll eat it. And she put it on the table, and I sat down. She said, aren't you going to take a shower first? I'm going, why? She goes, you're all dirty. I said, I'm not going to put the food on me. I'm going to put it in my mouth and eat it. And she took her finger and touched the side of my face and just made a line through the dust. And she goes, and here's what happened. She goes, ugh. I thought, what's that all about? That's a city girl in the country. That's what that's all about. And my dad thought it was so cool. My daughters would go down there. They'd say, Grandpa, can we play in your dirt street? Can we go with you to pick eggs? They used all these city terms, and my dad thought that was just the coolest thing. I had the two neatest little girls, and he just fell in love with them. And by the way, he wouldn't listen to me talk about spiritual things very much, but he was so impressed with our girls that he took an interest in spiritual things later. How cool is that? Okay, information processing. They analyze how we process information in our thinking, and probably the greatest picture of that today is this computer stuff. The only difference is, if you put too much stuff on your computer, you ever get a sign that says your storage capacity is filling up? Okay, you're not going to overfill your storage capacity. God has given you a hard drive that is capable of holding as much information as you will need for the rest of your life. It's just that some of that information, when you file it away, you'll put it in a folder where you can't find the folder. So it's there. You say, yeah, but it's not doing any good because I can't find it. Oh, wait a minute. You'll be surprised. This to me is funny how this thing works. That it's there and you can't find it, but when you're in a crisis situation and you need it, it seems to pop out, jump up out of the, it kind of jumps up on the screen, and you see it and use the information. It's just so cool the way our mind works, the way God has equipped us and built us. In fact, one way have you ever tried to think of somebody's name and you just couldn't think of it? And so what'd your friend say? Well, just forget about it for a minute and it'll come to you. Right? Have you learned that technique? You just forget about it for a minute, and then sure enough, a few minutes later, it pops in your head. It's just amazing, the mind that God has given us, and how. So there's a lot of parallels between it. And I just have to realize. And by the way, since I teach math, I know what we'll do. Instead of having class 3 times a week, we'll just have class twice a week, and we'll make each class longer. So we'll cover 2 lessons in one class. No, we won't. Because if any of you have ever taken one of my math classes, we cover so much material in one class, by the time we get to the end of the class, your head hurts. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much information being thrown at me that I can only take in so much at a time. I need to go home and get some rest and kind of let it sink in before I look at some new information. So I told him, I can't teach math in 8 weeks. I have to stretch it out for 16 weeks to make it work so people have time to absorb the information. Whereas with your computer, you just punch it in there and bingo, it's gone and taken care of. What a cool thing is that. Biological theories simply focus on the biological and physical explanations of development. When my daughters were adolescents, what happens to girls that just embarrass them to no end? Do you still call them zits? Pimples? Why would my daughter wake up some morning with a zit, a pimple on her face, and she goes, oh, Dad, I can't go to school today? Is my daughter the only one who ever did that? You have a little blemish on your face? Just put a Band-Aid on it and go on to school. No way, that would be worse. No way, I'll cover it up with something. Okay, let's go out into the garage and get a can of paint. What color do you want? No. And I talked to them about this, and they go, why does this happen? I said, because it's biological. Your body's undergoing so many changes, it's causing these little pimples. It's called adolescence. And one of my daughters said, Dad, it sounds like a disease. I said, you know, it is kind of like a disease. And you go from 12 to 20 to get through it. Spend 8 years dealing with a chronic disease, and all of a sudden you wake up someday and you're a young adult and it's all gone. And sometimes it was so painful we don't remember it, and other times we remember it and think, I don't want to go back and live through that again. But keep those, sometimes it's good to remember to think about, what about these adolescents that I'm going to work with in life, and how am I going to help them? Conrad Lorenz, bless his heart, he's the guy that walked around, little ducks following him. And his whole, this ethology, study behaviors that help animals, including humans, compete and survive. The survival of the fittest. Anyone know what that means? Let's see. If I bring 3 cookies in here and lay them on the table and say I only have 3 cookies, so whoever gets here first gets them. Some of you say, so I don't want a cookie, so who cares? Okay, so I put 3 $50 bills up here on the table. Now we're talking. And based on good old Conrad Lorenz, go for it, and may the best win. The best what? You don't know what word goes in there? I always heard it was may the best man win. What about the women? Well, ladies, I hate to tell you this, but biologically and physiologically, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in here who are so much bigger than you. If you get in their way, you're going to go through a wall on their path to getting that $50 bill. And I don't care if you are a girl, it doesn't count. If you get in the fray, you suffer the consequences. Did any of you girls learn that having an older brother that you decided to pick on to see what would happen? That is just not smart. And they say, yeah, so I got even because I told on him and got him in trouble. So someone bigger than he came along and put him in his place. You see, that's the idea. You know, I just don't buy into that survival of the fittest. And can you see the implications of that for life? That's pretty sad, isn't it? And a lot of people buy into this stuff. Neuropsychology has to do with hooking up wires to your brain and having you do things and say things and reading what part of the brain is that coming from. And it's pretty cool stuff. But some people don't care for it, and some think it's really intriguing. So are you a left brain or a right brain person? I'm thinking, I'm not just using half of my brain, I'm going to use the whole thing, if you don't mind. Yeah, but do you know what comes from your left brain, your right brain? No. I mean, I know where to find out, and I've been taught that before. It just, I don't keep it up here on the front of the screen because it's not important to me which side of my brain's doing the thinking, as long as my brain's working. When my brain stops working, then I get nervous. Now see, you think that's funny. Okay, it is for your age group. If I said this at an old folks home, when your brain stops working, here's what you do about it, I would have everybody listening to the next thing I said. Because when you pass a certain age in life, here's my theory. The Bible says it's appointed unto man 70, isn't it? Have you heard that in the Old Testament? 70? That's 3 times 20 plus 10. That's 70. So here's what I concluded. A normal lifetime is 70 years. If you live beyond 70, the brain starts to give away. So you have to figure out some way to keep it strong and healthy, or it just evaporates on you. Oh, so now it's not funny, huh? Well, it kind of is. All of my friends who can't think about stuff anymore don't worry much about life. Some benefits to it. But if you want to keep doing what you're doing, then you say, I find some ways to keep my brain sharp. System theories, that's just a focus on all the interactions among all the layers of systems in your life. Now think about the layers in your life. Layers include interactions among your family. You mean to say my interactions with my 2 brothers and my 2 sisters and my mom and dad years ago still has an impact on the way the way I'm growing and developing? Yes, it does. My friends, the school I went to. Oh, by the way, this is interesting. My first 2 years of school I went to a 1-room schoolhouse where all 8 grades were in 1 room. And you know what somebody at the university asked me about that? They said, how did you learn anything? I said, it was so cool. They go, it was? And I said, yeah. Any of you ever go to a 1-room schoolhouse? Or even where you had 2 grades in 1 room or 3 grades in a room? Once you get your work done and you know what's going on, you get to listen to what they're teaching to the older kids so you can learn some more stuff. At least I thought that was cool. But see, the people I was talking with, they said, oh no, that 1-room schoolhouse was a disaster. Nobody learned anything. I'm going, my grandfather went to one, my great-grandfather went to one. I'm thinking the people who made this country great went to 1-room schoolhouses. You just don't realize what can happen there because it's foreign to your way of thinking. You don't have a schematic for that. Your neighborhood? My neighborhood was a bunch of farmers. What was your neighborhood? Yes?
Why do you think people reject things that they don't have a place for in their mind?
Well, what happens if I don't have okay, what happens? There's a car, right? You have a place for a car in your mind? Do you have a place for a truck? Do you have a place for a semi-trailer? Well, who has a place for a semi-trailer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How's it feel? 5 people have a semi-trailer and you don't have one. Who needs a semi-trailer anyway? You people with semi-trailers, where'd you come from? Truck driving families? You understand? You see what happens? When I don't have a schematic for it, rather than just say, I might learn something here, we have this basic sinful tendency that says, who cares anyway?
Well, my tendency is to be embarrassed.
Well, okay, yeah, that's part of it too. And once we're embarrassed, then what? Then we try to compensate for the embarrassment because it makes us feel bad. Isn't it cool finding out how this stuff is going on inside? And when my cousin got to my house and I said, when you told me you were in Olathe, I couldn't figure out where you were until I realized, oh, in Oklahoma it would be Olathe. Up here it's Olathe. And he goes, oh. And see, to me that was funny. That wasn't funny to him. Why would you call it Olathe? It's Olathe. He's a school superintendent in Oklahoma. Now, see, I can just see somebody's mind going, yeah, that tells you something about schools in Oklahoma, doesn't it? See, that's a commentary on Oklahoma schools and their superintendents. But you understand how we just kind of, now, and can you see where people who come from different cultures, does that help you understand why they can get at each other's throats, so to speak, when just because we don't have the same schematics? You have a schematic for a house in your head. If I popped up here on the screen a whole bunch of pictures of homes around the world, I mean, you can go to the internet, just Google homes around the world and look at some of the pictures. And you would look at some pictures and go, ew, yuck, I would want to live there. I'm thinking, how do you know? You've never been to that culture. You don't know anything about that society. So it's just that things that are different just kind of upset us. It's kind of like it's just our human nature to be bothered by that. Neighborhoods, government agencies, parents, the workplace, the values, laws, and customs of the larger society. So, what do you think about law and order? Obeying the laws. I mean, which law is the most irksome to you? Do you have any irksome laws? I do. 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. Those are irksome laws. So why do I follow them? Well, if I reach to the highest level of motivation, I say, because God says to submit to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. But when I'm driving down the road and I'm in a hurry, and I have to drive 25 miles an hour, I'm not embracing, in the immediate context, that awesome biblical principle. I'm going, go ahead, Tom. Kick it up to 35. There'll be a policeman over the hill who will pull you over and take $100 of your money. Do you really want to part with $100 of your money that quickly? No, I don't. So sometimes I embrace the higher principle. Other times I'm just trying to avoid the punishment. I don't want to spend the money. There was a time in my life before I got saved that it didn't cost, I mean, you could, in a 65-mile-an-hour zone, you could drive 85 and you'd pay a $20 fine. And I thought, $20, that's not bad. Put it to the floor when you're driving someplace to see a friend. And if you get caught, you pay $20 and keep going. You understand how that messed me up when I got saved and found out I was supposed to obey the law? I loved it. I loved it when they start putting cruise control on cars. I just punch the button and say, thank you, Lord. Keep it under control. Because all I have to do is put on some peppy music on my car, and my car just starts going faster and faster and faster. So the guy who wants to take your $100 pulls you over and says, so, you know how fast you were going? No, I don't, because I was busy listening to my CD. You want to hear it? Oh, okay, put your hands on the car. It's like, what did I say? Show a little respect. I'm going, did I disrespect you? He said, if you don't know the difference, get on the ground. Thinking, boy, this guy's got an attitude. Yeah, he also has a gun and a big stick, so I'm thinking I better do what he says. Just give him some space. It's the system I live in. Deal with it. And then the dynamic systems is simply based on models used. See here, this is by mathematicians and physics people. Here's what's cool about it. If mathematics is so exacting, can't we apply mathematical principles to life systems and solve our problems like we would solve problems in math? Well, there's some truth in that, but not near as much as people would like to make out. Because life is more than just a mathematical equation. On the other hand, I think, does anyone know the Greek word for disciple?
Doulos.
What is it?
Is it doulos? Or am I thinking? I'm thinking of slave.
Yeah.
Disciple is.
Is it mathetes?
I don't remember what it is.
Boy, you know, if it's mathetes, it sure sounds like mathematics. Whoa, I like that idea. Well, because you're a math teacher, that's why the rest of us don't want to hear it. Maybe that's not the case at all. Okay, let's quit doing this. Yeah, I guess. And let's move on to the rest of this stuff. What am I doing? I've covered all of that. So now we're over here looking at the last part of this chapter that talks about page 24, the scientific method of research. Have you figured out what descriptive research is on page 25? That's just the kind of research that describes things. Let's see. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 girls in this room, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in this room. So it looks like the ratio of men to women on this campus would be about 8 to 9. You follow me? That's just describes it. Well, you better look at a whole bunch of other classes, not just this one. Okay, but you understand? That's called descriptive research. I just go around, collect information, and then kind of write up a descriptive summary of what I found. Thieves do that. They drive around looking to see who goes to church. They know how long you'll be there. So when you come home, it could be that if you left your house unlocked, they're going to walk in and take stuff. I grew up in the country where you never thought about stuff like that. I married a city girl, and she says, lock the door, lock the door, lock the door. I'm going, Nina, if a thief backed up in the driveway with a big truck, because he's going to haul stuff out, he would come in our house and look around and say, we better leave something. These people are in trouble. He'd pull something off his truck and give it to me because he'd feel sorry for me because I don't have anything worth taking. Actually, one time, a guy stole my lawnmower out of my storage shed in my backyard. Not when I lived here, but when I lived down by Blue Ridge and Bannister Road. And I went out to mow the grass, and the mower's gone. And I'm going, oh, I came in and I said, all right, Nina. She goes, what? I said, someone stole my mower. I started laughing. She said, what's so funny about that? I said, that mower was the hardest thing to start in the whole world. I could just see him over there cranking on. He said, this thing's broken. It doesn't work. And now that it doesn't, now it's gone, I have an excuse to do what? Oh, I get to go shopping and buy me a new lawnmower. Is the glass half full or half empty? My glass is always half full or more. That's just the way I look at life. I'm having so much fun doing that. Go for it. And then my sister says, do you have a shopping problem? I'm saying, probably do. Probably do. Does that bother you? And it does. Okay, correlational research. Is there a correlation between people with a shopping problem and people who grow up poor? You think there'd be a correlation between that? People who grow up where you hear, we can't afford that, we can't afford that, we can't afford that. What do you think happens when they get older and they have some money in the bank? I can buy that if I want to. I've got some money in the bank. You follow what happens? You think there's a correlation? Now, did being poor cause me to have a shopping problem? No, correlation isn't causation, but you can try to figure some things out there. Then you say, well, what other people have a shopping problem besides poor people who grow up poor?
People who grew up rich.
People who grow up rich can have a shopping problem too, can't they? There's be a correlation there. You say, no, I didn't grow up either way, and I have a shopping problem. So it looks like there's a whole bunch of causes of shopping problems, but you can look at, and sometimes the big danger with correlation is we think correlation means causation. Okay, but a lot of people are out there doing correlational studies. They're fun things to do. Experimental research. Now, you can't do much of that anymore if you're going to work with children. Some guys used to, there's actually a famous psychologist who used to take people, he would tell their parents that your kids can come to camp for free as long as we can use them for research subjects. And he would run this camp and mess with these little kids' heads, turn them into little, what is that, Lord of the Flies thing going on? And finally, somebody concluded in the field of psychology that that was immoral to do that, and that you should not be using children for experiments. But I've used my wife for a few in life, and my own children for some too. I mean, I just thought it wasn't healthy for kids to eat a lot of candy, and for some reason in our society, people want to give little kids candy all the time. Even the dentist wants to give them candy. Not his own kids, but everybody else's kids candy. And I said, you know, girls, that stuff really isn't good for you. And besides, those little yogurt balls, they taste a lot better than any candy you'll ever taste. Now, you don't believe that, but if you were living at my house and you heard me say that long enough, what did I tell you today? Even if it's a lie, you hear it long enough, you'll start to believe it. I could take them to the mall, to a candy store, walk in there and say, so what do you think we ought to buy? And they said, what about this, Dad? And I said, I don't think that stuff tastes very good. What about these little yogurt balls over here, covered with chocolate? I'll bet they would be tasty. And so they take their money, walk over and say, I'll take 6 of those. And the teenager running the store goes, what is going on here? I'm going, just a little psychology. Just a little human growth and development, trying to help them grow up to learn not to have an appetite for sugar. And it kind of worked. The other experiment I tried, I would come home from work, my wife's cooking dinner, and I'd go, ew, what's that smell? And she'd say, Tom, that's dinner cooking. Where'd you find it? Roadkill or something? I didn't get dinner for quite some time. Then I'd come home the next day and say, wow, what's cooking for supper? That smells great. I can't wait for that. And it would be ready in no time at all. I'm going, you know something? Saying nice things to your wife really is a smart thing to do. Walk in the house and say something negative, just not the smartest cracker in the box. Think about it. And some of this stuff, especially, see, when I read something, I said, I'm just not sure it's really that way. Well, do an experiment with somebody and see what happens. And then if you get in trouble, then you'll say, yep, it's that way. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. Chapter 2. Heredity and environment. So, what has made you what you are today? Your environment or heredity? Oh, I have a handout for you here. This is kind of cool. I think, anyway. Think of some life experiences. For example, I'm very good at math. I love math. I'm a math teacher. And I've always liked math since the time I was a little kid. So, a life experience. On my list, I'll put down my first one is my mathematical abilities. You can put math down too if you want to, just as something to start with. I'm sorry, but I don't think I want to put that. Go ahead and put it down there. Just see what happens. Your ability in mathematics. What percent of your mathematical experiences are the result of nature? That would be heredity. Oh, I'm going to say about 80%. What percent is nurture? Oh, maybe 10%. I mean, I'm not sure I could teach math if I hadn't had some people helping me walk through some of those advanced concepts in calculus 2 and 3 and differential equations and linear algebra and blah, blah, blah. How much fun was that? How much of it was just, I have a notion to study math. You know, I never had a notion to study math. I just did it. It wasn't a notion. So none of that. How much is divine intervention? How much of my mathematical ability is a gift from God? Ooh, I'm thinking maybe all of it. 100%. That adds up to more than 100%. Yeah. Because the 80% that's nature is a gift from God, isn't it? And the 10% where someone nurtured me, that's a gift from God. He sent someone in my life who could help me understand it. But let's take something else here. Reading ability. Okay, math abilities. Let's take reading ability. Nature. Okay, I'm going to say 20% just because I know that we're naturally born to learn to read. God gave. Okay, so reading, I would say 100%. 100% of reading is divine intervention. Yeah, but I'm not very good at it. So that's why I have 20% nature and another 20% nurture, and that's only in a notion, 0. I'm not even interested in that. So I'm only a 40% person with reading, but what I have, God gave me the ability to do it. You follow what I'm talking about? So can you think of something that you can do? Can't you ride a bicycle? So how much of that is just nature? How much is nurture? How much is a gift from God? Does God give people the ability to ride bicycles? Well, He created us with this sense of balance, didn't He? So, if I didn't have a sense of balance, I probably wouldn't be on the bicycle. I'm not sure I'm going to give God 100% on bicycle. I'm going to say 50% is His gift of balance. And then, how much of it? Did any of you just get on a bicycle and try to ride it and took off and it just went great for you? So then, say no. I learned to ride a bicycle because someone taught me the whole thing. So then you would say riding a bicycle is about 100% nurture, and 50% of that is God's gift of the ability to have a balance. You follow what's going on here? Just look at your life and pick some things that you're good at and ask yourself, where did it come from? Internet research. Have you ever done any internet research? Does it just come natural, or did someone have to teach you how to do it? Well, I'm going to put down, for me, internet research was about 50% nature and about 10% nurture and about 50% notion. You see, that's 110%. Yep. See, I'm not worried about it, if the percents add up or not. I'm not trying to break it out. I'm just thinking about this stuff and coming up with some numbers. And divine intervention? I don't think God's intervened in my internet research. Well, maybe He has. Maybe I'll give Him 20% of the credit, because when I'm doing internet research, okay, see, I like to ask questions, so I go to Google and I just type in a question. How do you fix the license plate lights in a Toyota Corolla? And up pops 640,000 places you can go. So I guess I'm going to say, thank you, Lord, for helping me find the right place. But does anyone know a strategy for doing internet research? The ones that are looked at the most often are the ones that kind of show up first. So I click on the first one there, and it has me almost taking the trunk apart. And my first reaction was, that looks like too much work. I'm going to try to find another one that would be easier. And I finally found one. I had to go down a little bit, and I clicked on one and it said, oh, all you do is pop this little liner out and reach up through those holes, and there are the light bulbs, pull them out and put new ones in. Now that one I can handle. But taking all that stuff out of my trunk, I wasn't interested in doing that. Now, see, as I explain this whole process to you, the reason I call it 50% nature is, and I was able to put the new lights in my car that I needed to put to keep the license plate lit. And the reason I call it 50% nature is because I'm just naturally lazy. Does anyone know the benefit of being naturally lazy?
We are well rested.
That's right. I don't get tired very often. And somewhere I heard this and I thought, I like that. Work harder or smarter?
Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder. Lazy guys like that one. And because I'm lazy, I look for the easy way to fix something. And sometimes my laziness causes me to be a little creative. So I look for creative ways to do things. I don't want to climb a tree to cut off a dead limb. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just take a stick and put a saw on the end of it and stick it up there and cut the tree limb off? I wish I had one of those. Well, I do now, since Black & Decker came out with it. Do you ever see stuff and you say, I wish I would have thought of that? Yeah. And here's this big old saw with a battery, little blade on the end. it'll go up about 20 feet, hold it up there, and you cut that limb off and jump out of the way, and it falls to the ground. It's like, all right, let's cut the whole tree down. This is cool stuff. No work at all. I used to have a weed whacker, you know, that when I was a kid, my dad made me do it with just one of these things you swing back and forth. And then I bought one that was gas powered. Anybody ever use a gas powered weed whacker?
Yes.
What happens when it won't start? It just makes me, Adam, want to throw that thing in the trash. So I can't do that because I paid for it. Give it away. Find someone who needs a weed whacker and give me your gas powered one. Why? So I can buy one that's run by batteries. That's why. Well, the batteries run down. Yeah, I know. Then I have a reason to quit working and go rest for a while I charge the battery back up. Lazy guys love stuff like that. So, see what you can do is you can take a life experience and talk about how much was heredity, how much was environment, and just think through your life. And then hopefully when you're finished, you'll say, you know, God has been very good to me to give me some mathematical abilities that no one else in my family has. And then to give me an opportunity to be a teacher and to go to school and learn how to help other people learn math. It's like, that is so cool. That's why I'm just going to keep doing it till I expire and go to heaven. And the beauty is now, if I die in the middle of a semester, it's so cool with this new system of teaching here, with this blended stuff. I have the videos from last semester on the flash drive. So if I give it up, they can just show the videos from last semester and finish out the semester before they hire a new teacher. Man, modern technology takes care of everything. Okay. Heredity and environment. Page 47, where it talks about human reproduction. By the way, I have a question about this. Why are abortion clinics called Planned Parenthood? If anything's planned, what's planned? Not parenthood, but what? The destruction? So they ought to change their name to what?
Destruction Parenthood.
Fetus Disposal Services. Shouldn't they? I mean, if they want to be honest about it. Oh, you're pregnant and you don't want to have a baby? Come on over to the Fetal Disposal Agency. I don't think anybody who's planning to be a parent goes to one of those places to have an abortion, do they? What's going on here? And the government wants to pay for abortions, but they won't pay for the old guy going to see the dentist to keep his teeth in good shape. What's that all about? Okay. Well, I just thought I had to ask that question about this, because this chapter talks about all of this stuff that happens to us when we're born. On page 61, medical experts today can assist expectant parents who have concerns. Several procedures can detect genetic disease and abnormalities. If a medical expert tells you that your unborn child has a genetic disease or an abnormality, does anyone know what that medical expert will probably recommend to that parent?
Abortion.
Have an abortion. And over the years of teaching here, I don't know how many times I've had a student come to class and say, pray for my wife. She went to see the doctor and they said they did this, took this little picture and said that the baby has all kinds of problems and that we should have an abortion. And we prayed about it and talked to our pastor about it, and we're going to bring the baby to full term. And the baby was born, without any abnormalities at all. Whoops. Somebody got a bad picture and gave a bad interpretation of the picture. Now, if they would have decided to go ahead and have the abortion, and when the doctor took the fetus out and said, whoops, it wasn't what we thought it would be in the picture, do they tell the parents that? No, they just dispose of it and go on their way. That's pretty sad stuff. Our society has a problem when it comes to unborn children, and we need to do something about it. On page 63, if parents must decide whether to terminate the pregnancy because of a serious defect, CVS is helpful. Yeah, guess what? Are you ready for this? If you think your baby might have an abnormality and you go have a CVS done, the CVS could cause the baby to die. Whoa. They don't tell you that either, do they? How sad is that? Page 71. No, page 73 has a chart where they talk about the heritability of complex characteristics. Now, I don't know where they got their numbers, but see this? General intelligence is 50% inherited and 50% nurtured. But they have one source. So I'm thinking if they only have one source, you probably ought to figure it out. That how do you determine who's intelligent? Oh, people who make good grades in school. Not necessarily. People who don't make good grades are too smart, they don't need to make good grades. No, not that either. So these percentages here, I'm just not sure I like that chart. I'm just bringing to your attention to say, there it is. You can look at it. And is there anything here? Oh, maybe on page 56, some common dominant and recessive traits. Can you roll your tongue? You know, stick it out of your mouth and it makes a little trough. Look at these people rolling their tongues. That's disgusting. Now, why am I bothered by that? Just guess. Just guess. Why am I bothered by that? Because I can't do it. That's why. Isn't that something? Why? Who cares? But it's just like I'm telling you. It's like, that's amazing. I thought, what? I can't do that. What about your earlobes? Are they attached or detached? I don't know. I'll have to look when I get home. Do you have a dimple? Who has dimples in their cheeks? Now, how come you people who have dimples know all about it? Because every time you smile and your little dimple shows up, what do all the people in the world say? Oh, isn't that cute? Well, what does that make the rest of us? Ugly? Man.
Guys, stop looking at me.
Oh, it's time to go. Okay, we'll stop there and finish up chapter 2 and do chapter 3. Oh, we're supposed to do chapter 3 today, weren't we? Well, we'll do it on Monday. We don't have class on Friday, you know, because it's day of prayer.